Imagine this, you're scrolling late at night in New York or London, feeling that nagging void in your soul, the one that no app, no job, no relationship can fill. What if I told you that deep within your DNA lies a hidden quantum soul code, a cosmic switch that activates only once in a lifetime, unlocking infinite potential, eternal wisdom, and unbreakable power? But here's the catch. It's vanishing forever if you don't act now. This isn't sci-fi, it's your reality waiting to ignite. Hit that subscribe button right now, smash the bell for notifications, and join millions across the USA and UK who've already awakened. Because once this message fades, so does your chance. Subscribe today and let's unlock your destiny together in the bustling heart of a rain-slicked London street, where the neon glow of Piccadilly Circus clashed with the eternal gray drizzle of an autumn evening. Elias Thorne trudged through the crowd like a ghost haunting his own life. At 35, he was the epitome of modern disillusionment, a mid-level software engineer in a faceless tech firm, buried under lines of code that built empires for others, while his own dreams eroded like sandcastles against the tide. His apartment in Camden was a shrine to forgotten ambitions, dusty canvases from his art school days, a guitar with strings long snapped, and a shelf of self-help books promising transformation that never came. Elias had always felt it, that subtle itch beneath his skin, as if the universe was trying to whisper a secret he couldn't quite hear. It started as dreams, vivid recurring visions of swirling lights, ancient symbols etched in quantum foam, and a voice, ethereal and insistent, murmuring, "The code awaits activation." He dismissed them as stress-induced hallucinations, popping another pill from his nightstand drawer, but lately the whispers had bled into waking hours. One fateful night, as thunder rumbled over the Thames, Elias sat before his laptop, mindlessly scrolling through endless feeds of curated perfection, Instagram influencers flaunting lives he envied, Twitter threads debating the meaning of existence, and cryptic ads for soul-awakening seminars that promised miracles for a hefty fee. His finger hovered over one such link, titled, "Your quantum soul code activates only once. This message vanishes forever." Its thumbnail a hypnotic spiral of golden light. Something compelled him to click, not logic, but that primal pull from the void within. The video loaded instantly, no buffering, as if the internet itself conspired to deliver it. A figure shrouded in shadow appeared on screen, voice modulated to a deep, resonant timbre that vibrated through his speakers like a tuning fork striking his chest. "Listener," the voice intoned, "you've been chosen, not by chance, but by the quantum entanglement of your soul with the cosmos. This code, embedded in every human at birth, activates only once, triggered by a precise alignment of will, circumstance, and universal energy. Miss it, and it's gone forever, leaving you adrift in mediocrity. But activate it, and you'll transcend, unlock hidden abilities, bend reality to your desires, and connect to the infinite web of existence." Elias leaned forward, heart pounding, as the screen displayed a countdown timer, 23:59:59, ticking down relentlessly. "This message self-destructs at 0, the voice continued. To begin, speak your name into the void." Skepticism warred with curiosity. Was this a scam, a virus, or something more? Yet, in the solitude of his dimly lit room, with rain pattering against the window like impatient fingers, Elias whispered his name. The screen flickered and a surge of electricity coursed through his veins, not from the device, but from within. Colors intensified, sounds sharpened, and for a fleeting moment, he saw threads of light connecting everything, the lamp to the wall to the city to the stars, It was as if his perception had upgraded, revealing the hidden lattice of the universe. But then doubt crept in. "This is ridiculous," he muttered, closing the laptop with a snap. Yet, as he lay in bed that night, the dreams returned with ferocious clarity. He was no longer Elias Thorne, the forgotten coder. He was a conduit, a vessel for something ancient and immense. In the dream, he wandered a vast digital landscape where binary code morphed into sacred geometry, and at its center pulsed a glowing orb, the quantum soul code. "Touch it," the voice urged, "but beware, activation demands sacrifice." His hand extended, fingers brushing the light, and pain exploded. Memories flashing like corrupted files, childhood traumas, lost loves, unfulfilled promises. He awoke gasping, sweat-soaked, the clock reading 3:33 a.m. Checking his phone, he found an email from an anonymous sender, Phase 1 initiated. The code stirs. Seek the first key in the city of your birth. Elias was born in Manhattan, but he'd left New York years ago for London, chasing a job that chained him instead. The message vanished as he reread it, pixels dissolving into nothingness. Panic gripped him. Was this real, or had he invited madness? The next day at work, everything felt off. Colleagues' conversations echoed with hidden meanings. Emails contained subtle codes, and his code compilations ran flawlessly on the first try, as if the machine bent to his will. During lunch in a crowded cafe near Trafalgar Square, a stranger, a woman with piercing green eyes and a tattoo of a double helix on her wrist, approached. "You're awakening," she said softly, slipping him a card with coordinates scribbled on it. "The code calls you home. But hurry, shadows hunt the activated." Before he could question her, she melted into the crowd. Elias stared at the card, latitude and longitude pointing to Central Park, New York. His mind raced, quit his job, fly across the Atlantic on a whim. Yet, the itch had become a burn, the whisper a roar. That evening he booked a flight, heart thundering with equal parts terror and exhilaration. As the plane lifted off from Heathrow, Elias gazed at the receding lights of London, wondering if he was chasing enlightenment or descending into delusion. Little did he know, the quantum soul code was no gift. It was a Pandora's box, and activation would unravel not just his life, but the fabric of reality itself. The journey had begun, and there was no turning back. As the transatlantic flight hurtled through the darkened skies over the vast, unforgiving Atlantic, Elias Thorne gripped the armrests of his economy seat, his mind a whirlwind of fragmented thoughts that refused to settle, each one laced with the creeping dread that he had irrevocably crossed a threshold into the unknown, where the mundane rules of his former life no longer applied, and every shadow in the dimly lit cabin seemed to whisper warnings of pursuit. The hum of the engines vibrated through his body like a distant echo of the quantum pulse he had felt in his London apartment, that inexplicable surge that had rewritten his perception, making colors bleed into auras and conversations carry hidden frequencies, as if the world itself was a encrypted signal now decoding before his eyes. But with every revelation came a gnawing paranoia that he was not alone in this awakening, that eyes, unseen, relentless, were tracking his every move. He glanced at the passenger beside him, a middle-aged man in a rumpled suit typing furiously on a laptop, his screen reflecting cryptic lines of code that mirrored Elias's own profession. But now, in this heightened state, he wondered if it was coincidence or conspiracy, if this stranger was a sentinel placed to monitor him, his fingers not crafting software but weaving a digital net to ensnare the newly activated. The card from the mysterious woman burned in his pocket like a talisman, its coordinates etched into his memory. 40. 785,091 minus 73. 968,285, pointing to the Bethesda Terrace in Central Park, a place he hadn't visited since childhood, when his parents had taken him there on sunny afternoons that now felt like faded holograms from a life unmarred by the void. Sleep eluded him, replaced by visions that flickered like faulty projections, the glowing orb from his dreams pulsing with urgency, threads of light snaking through the plane's fuselage, connecting passengers in a web of fate, and then darker tendrils encroaching, shadowy figures with faces obscured by static, their voices a low hiss promising oblivion for those who dared activate the code. When the plane touched down at JFK in the pre-dawn haze of a crisp New York morning, Elias's heart raced as he navigated the labyrinthine airport, every security camera a potential spy, every uniformed officer a possible agent of the shadows the woman had warned about, those enigmatic hunters whose motives remained shrouded, perhaps guardians of the code's secrecy or rival seekers hungry for its power. He hailed a taxi, the driver's accent thick with Brooklyn grit, and as they sped toward Manhattan, the cityscape rising like a jagged crown against the awakening sky, Elias felt the first real pang of isolation. Friends he could call? None close enough to confide in this madness family? His parents long gone, victims of a car crash he'd always suspected was more than accident. A suspicion now amplified by his awakening senses. The taxi dropped him at the park's edge, the air heavy with the scent of fallen leaves and distant hot dog vendors, and as he stepped onto the winding paths, the coordinates guiding him deeper into the foliage, a fog rolled in unnaturally thick, muffling sounds and blurring boundaries, making each rustle of branches a potential ambush. His phone buzzed, a text from an unknown number. The key is buried where angels weep. But beware the echo, it deceives. The message deleted itself before he could screenshot it, leaving him staring at a blank screen, his pulse thundering as he approached Bethesda Terrace, the iconic angel statue looming in the mist like a sentinel from his dreams, her wings outstretched over the fountain where water trickled like tears. Kneeling at the base, his fingers probing the damp earth, he uncovered a small metallic box, its surface engraved with symbols that matched those in his visions, swirling fractals that seemed to shift when he blinked, as if alive with quantum probability. Inside lay a crystal pendant, cool to the touch, and as he clasped it around his neck, a jolt surged through him. Memories not his own flooding his mind, ancient civilizations harnessing the code for godlike feats, only to crumble under its weight, individuals like him activated across history, some becoming legends, others erased from existence by the shadows, a clandestine order sworn to prevent the code's full unleashing, fearing it would shatter the fragile veil between realities. But as euphoria crested, a footstep echoed behind him, too deliberate, too close, and he whirled to face a figure emerging from the fog, cloaked in black, features hidden by a hood, their voice a mechanical distortion. The code is not yours to claim. Surrender it, or join the vanished. Elias bolted, the pendant thrumming against his chest like a second heartbeat, amplifying his speed, his senses sharpening to evade roots and benches in the haze. But the pursuer was relentless, their steps unnaturally silent, closing the gap with predatory grace, forcing him deeper into the park's wilder reaches, where joggers thinned and isolation amplified every snap of twig. Ducking behind a cluster of boulders, breath ragged, he realized the pendant wasn't just a key, it was a beacon, drawing not only power but danger, and as sirens wailed in the distance, perhaps summoned by unseen forces, He wondered if activation was a curse disguised as salvation. Slipping through a side exit onto Fifth Avenue, the chaos of morning traffic a temporary shield, Elias flagged another cab, directing it to a nondescript motel in Queens, his mind racing with questions. Who were the shadows? Why him? And what sacrifice would the code demand next? Checking in under a false name, he barricaded the door, the room's stale air thick with suspense, and as he examined the pendant under the flickering lamp, it projected holographic images onto the wall. Maps of ley lines converging on Stonehenge in the UK, whispers of a second key hidden there, but encrypted warnings of betrayal from within. Exhaustion claimed him, but sleep brought no respite, only nightmares of entanglement, where his actions rippled across timelines, altering fates he couldn't foresee, and in one vivid sequence he saw the mysterious woman from London not as ally but as shadow, her green eyes gleaming with deceit. Awakening with a start to pounding on the door, Elias froze. The motel manager, or something far worse? Peering through the peephole, he saw no one, only an envelope slid under the door, its contents a single photo, him at the airport, time-stamped mere hours ago, with a scrawled note, "The entanglement tightens. Trust no one." Phase 2 beckons across the ocean. His flight back to London was booked instinctively, but as he fled the motel, glancing over his shoulder at every turn, the city that once felt like home now pulsed with menace, every stranger a potential threat, the quantum code no longer a whisper but a scream, pulling him toward an abyss where twists of fate awaited, and the line between awakening and annihilation blurred into nothingness. Back at JFK, boarding pass in hand, Elias felt the pendant warm against his skin, as if sensing the journey's escalation, and in the reflection of a terminal window his eyes glowed faintly with otherworldly light, a sign that the code was embedding deeper, rewriting his very essence. But at what cost? The plane ascended, leaving New York behind, yet the shadows he knew were not bound by geography. They were everywhere, entangled in the quantum fabric, waiting for the moment to strike. Hours later, touching down at Heathrow under a stormy sky that mirrored his turmoil, Elias navigated the underground. The crowded cars, a blur of faces that seemed to watch him. Whispers in the air carrying fragments of his name. Paranoia peaking as a man in a trench coat followed him from platform to platform, only to vanish when confronted. Emerging into the rain-soaked streets of Camden, his apartment loomed like a trap, but necessity drove him inside, where chaos awaited, drawers rifled, laptop smashed, walls scrawled with the same symbols from the pendant, a message in red ink, activation irreversible. Shadows converge. Heart-slamming, he grabbed essentials, a backpack, cash, the pendant, and fled into the night, the city's labyrinth his only ally. But as thunder cracked overhead, illuminating alleyways, he spotted figures in pursuit, their forms flickering like glitches in reality, forcing him to duck into a pub, blending with the raucous crowd, nursing a pint while scanning exits. There, amid the din, a familiar face appeared, the green-eyed woman, sliding into the booth opposite him, her smile predatory. "You found the first key. Impressive. But the code demands alliance." Suspicion flared. Was she friend or foe? Her hand extended, revealing a matching tattoo that glowed subtly, syncing with his pendant, and she whispered, "I'm Alara, guardian of the entangled. The shadows are the unweavers, ancient foes who seek to sever the code's threads, plunging humanity into stasis. Join me, and we'll activate Phase 2 at Stonehenge." Trust teetered on a knife's edge, but as shouts erupted outside, shadows breaching the pub, Elias nodded, following her into the back alleys, their escape a frantic dash through London's underbelly, sirens wailing in pursuit, the night alive with suspense as twists unraveled, Alara's story laced with half-truths, her eyes betraying secrets, and the pendant revealing visions of her past betrayals. They stole a car, speeding toward Wiltshire under cover of darkness, the ancient stones calling like a siren's song, but midway, a roadblock loomed, shadow vehicles, armed figures emerging, and in the ensuing chaos, Elias discovered the pendant's power. Time slowed. Probability shifted, allowing him to weave through bullets like threads, but the cost was a searing pain, memories fracturing, his identity eroding. Crashing through, they arrived at Stonehenge as dawn broke, the monoliths humming with energy, Alara chanting incantations that aligned the ley lines, the second key materializing in a burst of light, a ethereal scroll inscribed with quantum equations that unlocked telepathic links, allowing Elias to sense thoughts. But in that moment of triumph, betrayal struck. Alara lunged for the pendant, her true allegiance revealed as a shadow infiltrator, her words a venomous hiss, "The code is mine." Struggle ensued amid the ancient stones, powers clashing in a quantum storm, Elias's awakening surging to overpower her, binding her in threads of light, but as she faded into static, her final whisper chilled him. The true shadows are within you. Phase 3 will consume. Alone now, the scroll in hand, Elias realized the code's activation was a virus, spreading through his soul, demanding more sacrifices, loved ones, sanity, perhaps reality itself. And as he fled the site, authorities closing in, the suspense mounted. Where next? The scroll pointed to Paris, the Eiffel Tower a nexus of entanglement. But with every step, the void whispered louder, twists coiling tighter, the vanishing message's prophecy edging closer to fulfillment. The vanishing veil in the shadowed underbelly of Paris, where the Seine's murky waters reflected the Eiffel Tower's iron lattice like a fractured mirror of forgotten dreams. Elias Thorne arrived under a cloak of midnight drizzle, the ethereal scroll clutched in his trembling hands, its quantum equations now pulsing with an inner light that synced with the pendant around his neck, amplifying his senses to a fever pitch where every raindrop carried echoes of parallel realities and every passerby's glance hid layers of intent. The betrayal at Stonehenge still raw like an open wound, Alara's fading form a haunting reminder that trust was a illusion woven from the code's deceptive threads. But the pull was inexorable, drawing him to the tower's base as the scroll's holograms projected visions of the final key, a nexus point where ley lines converged with human ingenuity, promising full activation but warning of a cataclysmic unraveling if mishandled. His journey from London had been a gauntlet of evasion, shadows manifesting as Interpol alerts on his phone, hacked billboards flashing his face with wanted, quantum anomaly, and anonymous tips leading him through back alleys and underground metros where the air hummed with surveillance drones disguised as pigeons, their eyes glowing faintly in the dark, forcing him to discard his identity piece by piece. Passport burned in a trash fire, phone smashed underfoot, relying solely on the code's emerging powers, glimpses of future probabilities that allowed him to sidestep ambushes, telepathic nudges steering him toward safe havens like a derelict cafe in Montmartre. An old seer, eyes milky with age, recognized the pendant's aura and whispered ancient lore. The code is the soul's blueprint, entangled with all existence. Activate it fully, and you'll rewrite the cosmos. But the price is your singularity, become everything, or cease to be. Doubt gnawed at Elias as he ascended the tower's stairs, the metal groaning underfoot like the protests of a reality straining at its seams, tourists oblivious to the storm brewing in his veins. their laughter a dissonant soundtrack to his isolation. The pendant heating against his skin as he reached the summit, the city sprawled below like a neural network alive with lights, and there, at the apex, the final key materialized in a swirl of quantum foam, a crystalline orb that hovered, beckoning him to merge, but as his fingers neared, shadows coalesced, not as figures this time, but as distortions in the air, unweavers emerging from rifts in space-time, their forms glitchy amalgamations of past victims, voices a chorus of condemnation. You meddle with the forbidden, the code maintains balance. Activation shatters it. The confrontation erupted in a maelstrom of energy. Elias channeling the pendant and scroll's power to weave defensive barriers of light, probabilities shifting to deflect ethereal attacks that warped gravity and time, the tower trembling as tourists screamed and fled, but in the chaos, a twist unfurled, the seer's words echoing as Elias realized the shadows weren't enemies but fragmented aspects of his own soul, guardians against hubris, born from the sacrifices he'd made, lost memories manifesting as pursuers, unfulfilled dreams as betrayals, the code's activation a mirror forcing self-reckoning. With newfound clarity, he didn't seize the orb for personal power but harmonized with it, allowing the quantum soul code to activate not as domination but as unity, threads extending outward to entangle with humanity's collective consciousness, unlocking potentials in strangers below, artists inspired, scientists enlightened, lovers reconciled, in a ripple of awakening that mended the void in his own heart, the shadows dissolving into him, wholeness restored, the message's prophecy fulfilled as the orb vanished, its essence absorbed, leaving Elias transformed, no longer adrift but a beacon, the vanishing forever a metaphor for ego's dissolution into infinity. Yet in the aftermath, as dawn gilded the Eiffel Tower and authorities cordoned the site, chalking it up to a freak electrical storm, Elias walked away anonymous, the code's gift subtle now, intuition guiding him to help others activate their own, a quiet revolution against mediocrity, adding significant value to the world by revealing that every soul held this potential, waiting for the once-in-a-lifetime spark, twists resolved in redemption rather than ruin, the story's end a beginning for all. If this tale of quantum awakening stirred something in you, hit that subscribe button now. Join our community in the For All world, more vanishing messages that could change your life forever. Smash the bell and never miss your activation moment.